My son complains that his mother is not gentle or beautiful enough. He personally picked a girlfriend for his dad. On Mother's Day, he used my money to buy a diamond necklace for that woman, but only gave me 3 carnations. On my birthday, he helped his dad spend my money on a painting of that woman as a gift for me. He said to his dad, "My mom looks like a man. You must have been really hungry back then to eat this up. Aunt Vanessa is beautiful and gentle, and she's an artist. Someone like her is truly deserving of you." I have to admit that I have failed in my education of him. So I packed my bags and kicked this pair of ungrateful wolves out of the house. When my son Adrian hurriedly came back, I was staring blankly at the scattered pieces of paper on the floor. Seeing the precious painting that had originally hung in his bedroom destroyed like this, his face changed and he pursed his lips. I understood him. This was his unhappy face. Instead of asking him, as I usually would, why he was unhappy, I remained motionless in my seat. Eventually, Adrian couldn't hold his composure any longer. He pretended to be indifferent and softly asked me, "Mom, what are you mad about? Why are you taking it out on things? Isn't this a birthday gift from Dad? Even if you don't want to give Dad face, you should spare the painting since it was carefully chosen by your son." He pretended really well. In his eyes, I probably didn't have a brain at all. I looked at him coldly. His sharp and sarcastic words kept circling in my mind. But he was my child, whom I had treasured and raised for 15 years. I couldn't help but want to give him one last chance. "Adrian, why did you help your dad choose this painting?" Adrian touched the back of his head, and his expression softened. "Mom, don't you think this painting is beautiful at first glance? It's the life I dream of." The painting was indeed beautiful. The 3 of us sat on the beach, with a calm sea and a sky full of sunset behind us. I once thought Adrian chose this painting because he was thinking of the 3 of us. However, I had noticed at the time that the woman with the white dress and long hair was a delicate image I had never had. It turned out that his ideal was to have his father and his Aunt Vanessa reassemble their family with him. He thought I was in the way. I stopped talking to him and returned to my room, lost in thought. I thought I needed to calm down. Just an hour ago, while I was happily baking a cake for Adrian, I received a phone call. She said she was my husband's girlfriend introduced by my son. How absurd. I raised my son all by myself. His dad hadn't helped him at all, except for that initial shudder. How could he possibly do such a thing? Yet the woman's disdainful voice and the chat log she sent felt like invisible slaps, hitting me hard in the face. She said, "Isabella, on Mother's Day last month, Adrian gave me a necklace, a Cartier one. Although it's not full of diamonds, it still has a few." "What did he give you?" "He gave me 3 carnations. That day, he scratched his head, blushing, and said to me shyly, 'It's all my fault for buying front row tickets for MS. Isabella a few days ago. Now I'm broke. I'm sorry, Mom. I can only give you this. How about I cook you a meal instead?' I didn't care about that at all. He studies piano, and attending concerts is serious business. I even worried that he might not have enough money to spend, so I transferred him 10,000 yuan as pocket money. He laughed and asked me, 'Mom, can I ask to go on a trip with my friends? They're all going to an island for vacation, and I want to go too.' I thought that going out would inevitably cost more, so I gave him 30,000 yuan. A Cartier necklace with only a few diamonds probably costs around $40,000. This means that for those few days he went out to play, he would rely on leveraging the face he valued most to get by on others' generosity. What a good son I have. He scrimped and saved just a splurge on his father's girlfriend, then handed me 6 yuan to buy 3 carnations. He didn't even spend money to wrap the withered flowers. The woman also sent a few chat screenshots. In them, Adrian seemed so foreign that I couldn't believe this was my biological son. "Dad, how are you and Aunt Vanessa doing? Isn't your son particularly insightful? Aunt Vanessa is beautiful and gentle, and she's an artist. Someone like her is truly deserving of you. My mom looks like a man. You must have been really hungry back then to eat this up." Every word on that screen was so familiar, yet when combined, they felt so strange. I couldn't imagine that my sunny and cheerful son would use such vulgar language to belittle his mother in private. The woman on the other end of the phone heard my gradually heavy breathing and laughed like an old hen. "Isabella, I have to thank you. I can't bear children, and you've helped me raise a good son. Do you know why your son wanted to eat cake today?" When she said this, I was preparing to put the cake batter into the oven. This morning, my son rarely acted spoiled and said he wanted to eat the base cake I made. I hurried and didn't even have time to drink a few sips of water. I spent half the day squeezing time to get home, fighting with flour and butter. But now, looking at the messages on my phone, my heart turned to ice. Dad, now you can date with peace of mind. I told a man that I wanted to eat cake, and she's so clumsy that it'll surely take her all afternoon to make it. She won't have time to go to the office. The scattered chocolate, butter, and cheese on the table seemed to sprout mouths, all laughing at me. My eyes were misty as I stared hard at the words on the screen, yet I couldn't see clearly at all. I raised my hand to rub them, but the flour was disobedient, getting into my eyes and causing tears to flow continuously. Perhaps some people in this world really can't be raised well. I sniffled, patted the flour off my hands, and threw the cake batter into the unpreheated oven. This cake was a failure. No matter how perfectly I had made it before, it didn't matter now. It was all a failure. So, I decided to let it go. I said to Vanessa, who was still bragging on the other end of the phone, forget it. What do you mean, forget it? Miss Vanessa, you're not short on money. You probably want someone instead. Since you love picking up garbage so much, I'll give you this pair of ungrateful wolves. I rummaged through my suitcase, planning to leave this home. Since they disliked me, I also had no intention of staying here to be an eyesore. Before I could pack a few pieces of clothing, Adrian burst through the door. Mom, what's wrong with you? If you have a problem, come at me. Why are you yelling at Aunt Vanessa? And so harshly, I threw the clothes I was holding on the floor and slapped him across the face. My wrist buzzed with pain, and I shook my hand, coldly staring at Adrian, whose face was now showing shock. This was the first time I had hit him since he grew up. His skin was exceptionally fair, and red, swollen fingerprints quickly appeared on his face. You hit me? On what grounds? Adrian clenched his fists tightly, enough to turn white. On your ignorance and impulsiveness. On your selective hearing. On the sense of accomplishment you get from making your mother look like a fool. On your lack of moral integrity. Before he could say anything, I raised my hand and slapped him again. Let me ask you, is this enough? Do you need me to explain in more detail? He bit his lip, his gaze a bit evasive, yet somewhat defiant. Okay, since you know, I won't hide it from you anymore. My dad did indeed get a girlfriend, but you two aren't in love. What's wrong with him liking someone else? Is it that I didn't educate him well? I felt a bit confused. Adrian, I'm curious. As your mother, how have I wronged you? From the day he was born, I had been striving to be a good mom. I never pressured him. I just worked hard silently. I worked hard to earn more money, hoping to give him the freedom to choose the life he wanted in the future. And I never complained about this in front of him. But what about him? He hung his head, lost in thought. I had a lump of anger stuck in my chest, making me feel unsettled. The limited edition sneakers in your room take up half the wall, and I had to pay extra to get those for you. Those shelves full of rare game discs. I had to owe people favors to get my friends to search for them everywhere. From childhood to now, what have I not given you? Those various strange figurines, the Lego filling half the room, and a pile of sports cards. As long as you said you liked it, I tried my best to satisfy you. And you? Is your return to me betrayal, belittlement, and disdain? While I was speaking, Adrian remained standing in place, silent. Once I finished, he suddenly looked up, a cold smile curving his lips. Don't say those things. Pathetic East Asian parents love to get emotional. I didn't ask you to do any of this. Your kindness towards me is just to prepare for your future retirement, isn't it? I'm not saying I won't support you now, so what are you complaining about? Besides, who told you to be the one making all the decisions at home like a man? My friends' moms revolve around them, all gentle and beautiful. And you? He sneered, sizing me up. You're just a fertilizer seller, a manly woman. His expression resembled that of his father. And those beautiful eyes were filled with mockery and bitterness. Just moments ago, when I scolded him, I still had some hope. I thought, what if he was just misled? What if this was just an unfunny joke? But now I felt relieved. I don't believe Adrian has the right to use the term East Asian parents to judge me. He didn't live in a high-pressure environment, and I didn't use oppressive education on him. I gave him everything I could. He lacked neither companionship nor material goods. Yet he still grew up with no moral boundaries. Either the seedlings I carefully planted grew crooked along the way, or he was crooked from the start. Seeing that I didn't say anything, Adrian probably thought his words had successfully provoked me. He even forgot about the swelling on his face, smiling with pride, which caused him to wince in pain. Mom, I didn't fail to give you opportunities. I already said, let my dad manage the company, and you stay home as a full-time housewife. Some of my friends' moms used to be pianists, and some were dancers. When they ask about my mom, I can only say she's just a fertilizer seller. What do you want me to do? Where am I supposed to put my face? People look at me differently when they hear my family is run by a woman. Oh, so that's how it is? Because he yearns for other people's mothers. He personally chose a girlfriend for his dad to replace his mother's role. Unfortunately, this little fool doesn't realize. The reason I manage the company outside is that his dad lost everything twice. If Isaac really takes over the company again, Adrian might only be worthy of drinking the northwest wind. At this point, I had truly calmed down. Why should I leave? It's them, this pair of ungrateful wolves, who should be thrown out. I switched the call to speakerphone and dialed Isaac's number in front of Adrian. On the other end, I heard heavy breathing, as if he was doing something physical. What's up, darling? I'm at the company. With his short bursts of breath, how could he be this tired? Why don't you pull your pants up before you start lying? Don't let anything slip out, I said. Isaac sounded a bit embarrassed. What are you talking about? I just climbed a few flights of stairs. Before he finished, he suddenly grunted, finally getting the sentence out. I mean exercising. I glanced at Adrian, who had turned away to avoid looking at me. Oh, I had forgotten. He knew their situation better than anyone else. Then get off your fitness equipment, lady, and come back to sign the divorce papers. Don't joke, darling. You can ask our son. He knows I've been preparing to get fit. Adrian sat down on the bedside table, rolling his eyes at me. I was fed up with Isaac's mouth full of lies, so I raised my voice. I know everything about your little family of 3, so stop lying to me. Come back now. Without waiting for his response, I hung up the phone. What's the big deal? Do you have to make everyone unhappy? Adrian said angrily, slapping the nearby lamp to the ground. The beautiful ceramic lampshade shattered everywhere. This was a gift from my teacher, and he knew that. For over 10 years, no matter where I moved, I always kept this lamp with me. It had been well preserved, not even a scratch on it. Now it was smashed like this by him. My heart ached, and tears uncontrollably flowed out as I hurried to crouch down and pick up the pieces. The sharp edges of the shards cut into my hand, blood seeping out drop by drop. Adrian laughed, shaking his head. I knew you treated this junk like a treasure. Now it's broken. Are you hurting? Is it painful? Now you understand how I feel about you tearing up my painting? His painting? The one he bought with my money. The one he displayed right in front of me to insult me. How could that be compared to a gift from my teacher? My teacher treated me like a daughter. She rescued me from that family that favored boys over girls. She was also the one who extended a helping hand when I was abandoned by Isaac. Adrian clearly knew this. He knew that I treasured this lamp the most. I looked up and met his triumphant gaze. He didn't feel sorry for hurting me. He wanted me to be sad on purpose. It made sense. In his heart, he regarded Vanessa as his real mother. Adrian, if you were 3 or 5 years old, I would immediately reflect on whether there was something wrong with my parenting style. But you're 15 now. I can't excuse you with immaturity anymore. From today on, I'll act like I never had you as a child. I didn't look at his expression and got up to print the divorce papers in my study. Isaac got home quickly, his face still flushed. I glanced at him disdainfully and pouted. Looks like age really affects endurance. His old face turned red. What nonsense are you talking about? The child is still home. He's already mature enough to introduce you to a girlfriend, and you're still pretending to be a good dad? He suddenly turned to Adrian, his tone full of blame. Why did you tell her that? Adrian was fidgeting with the tassels on the pillow, his voice muffled. How could I tell her? She suddenly went crazy. She tore up Aunt Vanessa's painting and called to yell at people. Aunt Vanessa must have suffered a lot. Isaac shrank his neck and sneered at me. Then suddenly realizing something, he frowned and looked back at Adrian with a hint of confusion in his eyes. Yelled at someone? When? How did I not know? Adrian pulled out his phone and showed him the messages. I was curious, so I stretched my neck to see. Adrian, I'm sorry, but you can't call me mom anymore. Your mom will be unhappy. She's right. Someone like me doesn't deserve a son as good as you. You should just call me Aunt Vanessa. So this was the great grievance she suffered. She might feel wronged every day for as long as she lives. Adrian looked up at me with anger, and Vanessa has already backed down. She didn't even ask my dad to divorce you, but you're the one acting all high and mighty, bullying her. Didn't you say you wanted a divorce? Just get on with it. He reached out and pulled at Isaac's arm. Dad, sign it. But he didn't expect that Isaac wasn't as tough as he thought. His good dad's knees buckled, and he fell to his knees in front of me. Darling, I was wrong. It's all our son's fault. He keeps saying you're unattractive and not presentable, urging me to be with Vanessa. I never intended to betray you. That woman was like a siren, using all sorts of tricks to lure me. I got a little carried away. Darling, I promise I won't associate with her anymore. I'll delete her right now. I'll help you yell at her. Please forgive me this once. Adrian looked at his dad, his face full of shock, being stabbed in the back right in front of me. Isaac was still as shameless as ever. His gaze darted back and forth between me and his dad. Suddenly, he shouted at me, "Damn manly woman. Look at what you forced my dad into." Isaac tried to grab him but stumbled as he stood up too quickly, nearly falling to the ground. Adrian didn't even look back, roaring at me like an enraged lion. I'm really fed up. What woman acts like you? Can a man have some status in this house? My dad is just in a relationship. It's not like he broke any major laws. Why are you acting like this? I suspected this son might be blind and deaf. Didn't he hear his dad just passing the buck to him? If it weren't for how fierce you usually are, would my dad be scared like this? He just encountered some problems when he was young and didn't handle them in time, right? Who hasn't made mistakes? Why should he be pressured by you for life? Adrian was defending his dad. All he had to do was turn slightly, and he could see his precious dad cautiously glancing at me. His face was filled with guilt. I snorted coldly. Isaac, you were at the dinner table making deals, and you blindly signed a contract that cost us over $800,000, far exceeding all our assets at the time. You called it a small problem? After the incident, you turned around and ran, leaving all the trouble on my shoulders, even causing our infant son to almost get killed by debt collectors. You called it just not handling it in time? I thought Adrian would be shocked upon hearing this. At least he would reflect on what kind of person his dad was. But instead, he stubbornly held his neck high, acting indifferent. My dad was young back then. He just trusted his brother too much. What big mistake is that? Besides, he didn't run away. He went to solve the problem, just came back a little late. He even looked at me disdainfully. If you hadn't acknowledged that debt, my dad would have resolved the issue long ago. There wouldn't be any reason for you to act all high and mighty now. Being unattractive and always hunched over, you'd be embarrassing to take out in public. I was so angry I trembled, my voice choking. Resolve? By taking you out to beg? They were dragging you around like a dog. You almost fell to the ground. Do you think my back can't straighten up? It's because I got hit by an iron rod while saving your ungrateful self. Adrian rolled his eyes, mumbling, "It's been so many years. Why are you bringing this up now? I never begged you to save me. Besides, isn't violent debt collection prohibited? Your words sound like a scam. I'll tell you, it's too late for you to sell your sob story for sympathy now. I will not recognize you as my mother again." I laughed in anger. I wanted nothing more than to slap the version of myself from back then. Why did I risk my life to save such a brat? I eventually drove the two of them out with a broom. Damn manly woman. No wonder no one loves you. Just look at how aggressive you are. Dad, divorce her. I refuse to believe we can't make money on our own. Adrian jumped up, veins bulging in his neck. I swatted him on the shoulder with a broom. Now get out. Adrian held his head high, pointing at my nose. Manly woman, just wait. When you're old, you'll have to shamelessly rely on me to take care of you. I slammed the door shut. Don't worry, I have money. Renminbi is way more reliable than a son like you. I wasn't going to give them a chance to regret it and change the lock that very night. I put Adrian's game discs, Lego, and those shoes up for sale on Shinyu. I sold everything cheaply according to my mood. If someone caught my eye, I gifted it directly. Those who received my little gifts were so excited that they sent me long strings of thank you notes. He didn't care for those things. Plenty of people did. The money from the sales was divided and donated to several stray animal rescue shelters. A child might not thank me, but using that money to feed some dogs would at least earn me a wagging tail. In the end, I entrusted the divorce case to a lawyer for full representation. But the lawyer told me a few days later that he couldn't get in touch with that father-son duo. I analyzed that Isaac might not want a divorce and had gone into hiding. He was particularly familiar with this kind of operation. I didn't expect that the next time I saw Adrian, it would be under such circumstances. I brought gifts to visit an old friend who once helped me, Old Lou. He and his wife ran a 10 yuan lunchbox stall near a construction site. The food was delicious and generous, and their business was booming. They were busy as bees, so I casually found a small stool to sit on at the entrance. "Oh, who is this? How did you manage to find me?" Adrian stood in front of me, sarcastically, covered in dust and wearing a pair of dirty thread gloves. "At this time, why aren't you at school?" As soon as I said that, I wanted to slap myself. Why was I meddling? But he suddenly became smug. "If you accept Aunt Vanessa, I'll go back to school. Otherwise, I'll work on the construction site for the rest of my life." "Oh, do as you wish." Adrian widened his eyes. "I won't play the piano anymore." Saying this, he took off his gloves and shoved his blistered palm in front of me, as if to say, "Look at how I'm torturing myself." I felt a bitter pang. How could I not feel heartbroken? He was a very musically gifted child. I never let him move heavy objects at home. But now, he runs to the construction site to carry bricks with these hands. I can't bear to see him get hurt. So I simply turned away and didn't look. "Adrian, I know you disdain having me as your mother. But as a stranger, I must remind you that you're still a minor and not yet at the age to support yourself." He reacted as if someone had stepped on his tail. "I'm not trying to support myself. I just came here to exercise. What do you know?" I laughed out loud. "You're a minor, and with no one to help you, how could a construction site dare to hire you? Who else can help a 15-year-old kid get onto a construction site, besides your heartless dad?" "My dad didn't. He just wants me to exercise. He went out with Aunt Vanessa on business, and will be back in a few days." I nodded. "Oh, I believe you." Adrian, humiliated and angry, knocked over a few bags I had set aside. Upon seeing the items scattered on the ground, his eyes widened in surprise. He broke into a knowing smile. "I knew you were here to find me, and you even brought a birthday gift." "I'm telling you, I don't want it." It was an alien-themed laptop. He had indeed mentioned wanting that as a birthday gift. I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, this? Don't worry, it's not for you. It's for a friend's child." "What about mine? What did you give me for my birthday?" This kid made it quite difficult for me. I casually pulled a lunchbox from the side and handed it to him. "Let me treat you to a meal." "Don't be polite." Adrian's face turned red with anger. "You gift others a computer worth tens of thousands and only give me a 10 yuan lunchbox?" I shook my head. "That's not it." His expression softened a bit. "I knew it. I initially wanted to get you something worth 6 yuan, but I didn't want to bargain down the price for someone. I couldn't think of anything to buy, so I reluctantly spent an extra 4 yuan. "Adrian, don't forget how you treated me first." Adrian's face turned crimson, his chest heaving heavily. "You're just petty. You're jealous that others are better looking and more likable than you. What gives you the right to compare with Aunt Vanessa?" Saying this, he raised his foot to stomp on that laptop. "Want to give it to someone else? I'll make you give it." Old Lee rushed over to stop him. "Hey, getting angry doesn't mean you can ruin things. That's a lot of money." Ming Yang told me this is a very expensive alien laptop. Adrian struggled in Old Lee's grip like a little chick, his mouth running. "Country bumpkin, that's called an alien laptop. That computer is worth your life. Does your son deserve to use it? You're not afraid of shortening your life." I looked at the child who had once pretended to be polite and friendly in front of me and felt genuinely scared. So I stood up and slapped him twice to calm him down. "You keep calling him a country bumpkin. If he hadn't emptied his pockets to send you to the hospital, you'd have burned your brain out long ago." That didn't quite relieve my anger. Using excessive force against a minor is ultimately not appropriate. So I decided to hit him where it hurts. "Adrian, all the Lego you built in your room, I gave it all away." His eyes turned red instantly. Even while being restrained by Old Lee, he stretched out his arms and legs, wanting to strike me. "And all your rare game discs, I sold them all. Your star cards, game discs, limited edition sneakers." With each item I named, Adrian's eyes widened further, and by the end, his gaze was even somewhat desperate. No, those are so hard to find. You know they're hard to find? You know they take effort to collect? But you don't appreciate them. I had to let those who do appreciate them have them. They're all very happy and grateful to me. Why should I use these things to trade for your insults?" With red eyes, tears streamed down Adrian's face. "I was wrong, Mom. I know I was wrong. Don't touch those. They were all my favorite things. I really know I was wrong. I don't like Aunt Vanessa anymore, and I won't say anything bad about you. Mom, please." His voice was urgent, and he seemed sincere. His lips trembled. "Really? Do you really know what you did wrong?" My words seemed to give him a glimmer of hope. He nodded randomly. I know. I shouldn't have insulted or mocked you. I shouldn't have sided with my dad. Everyone says my family is run by women, and I felt embarrassed. Please forgive me, Mom. I'll change. I really will. Under his hopeful gaze, I slowly spoke. Oh, that's a pity. I sold everything. Your room is now left with just furniture. Adrian, you're quite pathetic. All your classmates' moms were shining in various industries. They returned home for their children and ended up being the absolute right thing in your eyes. Seeing you like this, I'm really grateful I didn't give up my career for you. When I left, Old Lee's wife was still trying to persuade me. Kids don't know better. Just teach them slowly. Don't rush and get angry. Look at you. You've become so thin. Everyone could see how thin I had become. But my own son only cried over his toys. When I got home, the more I thought about it, the sadder I felt. There was always a burning anger in my heart that I couldn't release or swallow down. After thinking it over, I decided to take a long break for myself. Go out and enjoy life for a bit. After more than a month of wandering outside, I felt increasingly regretful. What was I doing with my life before, except working and taking care of children? Now I have money and free time, with plenty of opportunities to enjoy the mountains, rivers, and the world. This is what life is. I can stroll through ancient streets under the warm sun. I can also stand on majestic mountain peaks, overlooking the vast land. Wandering on golden beaches, listening to the sound of the waves, stepping on the soft sand, watching the afterglow dye the sky in vibrant colors. At that moment, I suddenly remembered that painting. I felt somewhat relieved. What does it matter who the person in the painting is? I can create my own art. I won't question myself because of Adrienne's denial. Later, while I was sweating profusely from eating hot pot, I received a call from Old Lay. Isabella, your son seems to be in trouble. What happened? I just saw several burly men pulling at him. Do you think Isaac has gotten into some trouble again? He could get into all sorts of trouble out there, but don't let it affect the kid. I put down my chopsticks and wiped my mouth, feeling a bit hesitant. I still boarded the return flight. The police called me, saying Adrian had injured his hand, and they could only find me as his guardian. When I arrived at the hospital, I was shocked to see Adrian, who looked so skinny, he seemed like just skin and bones. He recognized me as I walked in and became somewhat agitated. Mom, I know I was wrong. This time I truly know I was wrong. I ignored him and, after asking the police about the situation, learned what had happened. As expected, it was trouble caused by Isaac again. But this time, it was also Adrian's own doing. I turned back to the hospital room. Adrian, you are my child, and I will be responsible for you. Tears streamed from his eyes. Mom, I knew you wouldn't just ignore me. My dad isn't a good person, and that Vanessa isn't either. Only you treat me the best, Mom. I remained unmoved. I will hire a caregiver for you, and I will pay for your hospital bills. You can take care of yourself now. I'll transfer living expenses to your account every month, according to the standard of an ordinary 15-year-old. Adrian's expression slowly dimmed. My dad blames me, saying that everything between him and you is because of me. At first, he lied to me, saying that if I worked at the construction site for a couple of days, he could force you to take me back. But then he ran away. But that's because he lied to me. I know I was wrong now, can I? I smiled. No, you didn't realize your mistake. You're just scared. You thought you could live easily without me, but you were wrong about the people you trusted. You just didn't realize that your dad played you one last time before leaving, and you also didn't think that your Aunt Vanessa is not just an artist, but also a gambler. If your life was still great, would you still regret it? I guess not. Adrian buried his head in the blanket, crying so hard his shoulders shook. I heard your hand is injured. You really won't be able to play the piano anymore. Take care of yourself. I turned and left the hospital room. What I didn't know was that shortly after I left, Adrian's friends came to visit him. A girl suddenly asked him, "Your mom is Isabella." I saw her talking to the police when I came in. She's so impressive. A boy next to her side. Your mom is really amazing. She's not like my mom, who can't do anything and only knows how to spend money. Exactly. My mom is also a housewife. Having a strong mom is just so cool. Only then did Adrian realize that no one would look down on him because his family was run by women. He had always looked down on himself. He envied others for having calm and elegant moms. While others envied him for having an independent and strong mom, Isaac was arrested 3 years later. To be precise, he lost both his legs and found a way to report himself. After he and Vanessa scammed some money in the country, they went abroad. But he didn't expect that Vanessa was a gambler. When she lost money, she abandoned him at the casino to entertain niche groups. After enduring a lot of torment, he managed to convince someone with a disability to buy him back to the country and immediately dialed the police. Isaac could not run anymore this time that I didn't know how Adrian felt about not being able to take the civil service exam. He often loitered around the entrance of my company after school, and we couldn't chase him away. One time, old Luke casually mentioned him to me. Sometimes Adrian comes here to eat, and I tell him my cooking is delicious, right? The kid is really reluctant to leave. My kid said Adrian didn't do well on the college entrance exam. What's he going to do? That kid has studied piano for so many years, and now it's all gone to waste. It's such a pity. I thought it was a pity too. It's a pity for all the effort I had invested over the years in hiring him renowned teachers, and in the end, it was all for nothing. However, he wouldn't have to envy those friends anymore. They were no longer on the same level. Later, every time it was my birthday, I would receive a gift without a signature that I didn't open it. I just sent it back to him. In this world, some connections are deep, and some are shallow. Perhaps I was destined not to have a mother-son bond. But it's okay. I looked at the 8-digit balance in my bank card. Why wouldn't I think the future is promising?